One. Hello, Sunita. How are you?
Hello, Karen. How are you? Thank you for joining me today. And I'd like to introduce who you are, but just briefly, I'd like to say that my name is Sunita Badhan, and that's spelled SNETHA BADHAN. I am a survivor of abuse, public speaker, certified counsellor, and carer. And today I have the lovely opportunity to introduce my good friend and very special woman, Karen Cade. Have I pronounced that right? Karen Cade.
Karen Cade.
Yep.
Sorry, the noise. My dog
Cade.
just wants going around. So Mimi. Sorry. So if you hear dog noises that sound like a little piggy, it's my dog.
It's your dog. I know, bless. Happy dog.
Yes.
Can I just mention previous to that, your name, if that's okay? So just in case somebody came across your previous work.
Karen Cade.
Did you want to
Happy you, happy body from my
Yeah, we can't forget that. Yes.
Yeah. Happy you, happy body.
Karen Jones at that time.
Yeah.
Karen, are we connected okay? Because it's quite blurry my end.
It seems so at my end. You are nice and clear.
Okay, so I just wanted to let you know it's blurring and cutting out with the audio on my end.
My internet seems to be fine, so we'll just have to run with it.
So continue.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, no problem. Okay, so I just wanted to give a little bit of a background. So I first met Karen on the 11th of May 2019 at the Surviving the Ex-Narcissist conference in Newcastle, where she was an amazing guest speaker. And believe me, I was in awe, and she did such an amazing talk on that day. Long before her current chapter in a book called Start Over Book, way before the awards and many of the other incredible opportunities Karen has had. It's been a privilege to know Karen long before that. So that's absolutely amazing. But this was just after your previous book. So I would just like to say that over the years that I have watched Karen rebuild her life after surviving really hurtful, horrific abuse herself. And that was years of controlling and coercive behaviour for basically decades. And I just wanted to mention that not all abuse leaves bruises, and that's really important to remember and recognise when people are going through abuse. I've seen her turn her pain into purpose, not only for herself, but for for countless other people, including myself, because Karen did some amazing work with me. So just a step back from Karen's history. Karen became a mum at the age of 16 years old. She was faced with homelessness, hardship, judgment, and adversity. Yet instead of allowing those experiences to define her, she used them to become stronger, and stronger you did become. She went from stay-at-home mum for 16 years to a qualified personal trainer. She met her beautiful husband in London and moved to Italy not very long ago. And she has become an international bestseller and author, and dedicated her life to helping others find courage to start over, which is very important after surviving horrendous abuse. What I admire mostly about Karen is that she doesn't just talk about healing and boundaries and recovery. She has lived every word of it. So that lived experience, from my opinion, does absolutely help when somebody can empathize and relate to what survivors go through. Today, we are talking about Karen's new chapter of the new book, Start Over Book 10. So that's the title of it. Would you like to show us the book briefly?
Ta-da! It's 14. Yeah, 14 authors have all contributed their true life stories to this book, and out of adversity, they've managed to turn their lives around and speak about it in a way that can help anybody else who's going through a really tough time in their life and don't know how they're going to find a way out. It's literally a guide or a roadmap to show other people what's possible for them. And
Yeah.
I knew the moment that
Mhm.
I saw Sir Marco on Instagram, I saw him talking about he's giving away houses for homeless people. And then I
Oh,
remember,
yes.
yeah,
Mm,
I remember
yes.
that because he gives one away to a 16-year-old mum. And I thought, that was once me. I was once homeless, living in a hostel
Oh, yeah.
with my 60, my
Yeah.
16-year-old self with my son. And I had been living here in Italy for 3 years, nearly 4 years now. And I thought,
Mhm.
I'm far removed from my situation. I've done a lot of healing
Good.
and I'm ready to speak about my lived experience so that I can help others with my voice and my words.
Yeah,
So here we go.
absolutely, Karen. Absolutely. And I just wanted to highlight that in the other chapters of other people's stories, it is very, very diverse. So Karen's is obviously regarding controlling coercive behaviour. And there's other stories there as well. So it's a definite read. And it will relate to everybody because everyone's gone through something in that book. So I highly recommend the book there, and well done you.
Well, I
So
have read,
sorry?
I've read every chapter of the book, and I can honestly say I can relate to each of those chapters, even though they're nothing like my story. I could still see myself in those chapters. That's why I think anybody picking up the book, no matter what they've been through, I think, if you're stuck in your life, to read other inspiring stories can just be that. Books have changed my life and turned my life to a different direction. So I really highly recommend reading that book, reading all the chapters. Mine's the last one, and enjoy.
Absolutely, it really does inspire people. You know that people have come out the other end, and here they are sharing their story just as you are. And so, just to clarify, the chapter of your part 10, isn't it? 10 or 12? Sorry,
It's book 10,
chapter
and my
book
chapter is
10,
chapter 14, so the very last
chapter
chapter.
14, very last chapter, and that's Start Over Queen, from teenage mum to warrior woman, I rewrite the rules. Sorry, I didn't say that properly, but that's chapter 14. Yeah.
It is.
Together we're going to explore the hidden tactics of coercive control and the abuse that often goes unseen. And this is the most hardest side because it doesn't leave a bruise whatsoever. And why it's so difficult leaving the abusive relationship. And a relationship doesn't always have to be with a partner. It could be with colleagues. It could be with friends. The tactics are slightly different, but in particular, we are talking about relationships today. And most importantly, what life can look like on the other side. And that's very important to cover, which is what we'll be covering today as well. This conversation is not about blame. It's about awareness, understanding, hope, and healing.
It
So,
is.
Karen Cade, I will begin with asking you the question, the biggest question, and that is when I get to it.
Yeah.
um, Actually, just before I begin, I just wanted to say our interview today, we're going to be focusing on the abuse you can't see, the tactics that kept me stuck for decades. So just to clarify that is what we're focusing on today. Right, Karen. So looking back now, what were some of the abuse tactics you didn't recognize at that time?
Well, back then, I didn't have any language for what I was experiencing. It's only since leaving that situation, which took a lot to be able to do it, I have discovered the words to be able to say what it was that I experienced. There's a lot of information out there now. I wish it had been available when I was going through that time. And that's why I've taken the time to write the book so that other people can put the language to that time. And, you know, the seven, eight, we've got seven,
Yeah, we've
seven.
got 7. Yeah, the 7 tactics we'll be covering today. So shall I just go into the
Yes.
first tactic, which, as you were saying, that you didn't know until towards the end. So we're going to start off
One,
today with love bombing. Yeah. So
right.
love
Love bomb.
bombing. What is love bomb? Yeah. So what is love bombing? How did it show up in your relationship? And that's a very important part to start with of how it all begins. So if you'd like to
Well,
go and
I think
share. Yeah.
that's the number one red flag that anyone who's entering into a new relationship should be looking out for. Love bombing is intense um, attention. So
Yeah.
they you'll meet this person, and all of a sudden they will shower you with intense attention. They will tell you that they love you very quickly. They will rush the relationship on. You'll feel like you're chosen, like this is meant to be. And I guess sometimes I think, well, it was meant to be, but if I was giving advice to somebody going into a relationship, it should never be, trust takes time, and you need
Yeah.
to know that person before you start committing to things that need to take time. If you're going to trust someone, you need to take time to get to know them. And moving things on quickly is a sure sign that you should be pulling back. The minute that someone tries to move the relationship on quickly, pull back. And, if it seems too good to be true, it normally is too good to be true. Trust your gut, trust your
Mhm.
instincts. Yeah.
It sounds very much like a fairy tale, doesn't it?
Yeah. There'll be
Very much like a fairy tale. Yeah.
future promises. And the thing is, when we were little, we were read all these fairy tales, and wouldn't it be lovely in real life if it did go that way? But unfortunately, not everyone has the same heart as you and the same good intentions as you
Yeah.
do. So for
Yeah.
that reason, that's why you need to get to know somebody and their character. And um, we'll talk more about how you can spot patterns of
Yeah.
bad
With the
behaviour
following.
in with the following.
And I just wanted to add to that. There's also, yes, of course, you're the chosen one, you're the special one, but quite often it's also seen in the middle of that the poor, oh, the story, the situation there in their hardship, their difficulty. So you feel sorry for them too. They pull
Yeah,
on your empathy. So that's quite strongly common to happen as well. So it's coming in at all directions, but who are you actually meeting? You can't meet the real person in a short space of time. And often it's heard that people will mask. Anyone can mask, but these particular type of people, their mask is quite strongly on, and it will take time for that mask to slip, which we know about. So
yeah.
yes,
That,
it's vital to understand this. Mhm.
to slow it down, because they say between 3 to 6 months, you should be able to see how a person's behaviour and their character shining through. But I think
Yeah,
a good amount of time is 3 to 1 year is a better judge of time. So
yeah,
slow things
absolutely.
down. A good
Mhm.
relationship takes time, and you do not need
Yeah,
to rush anything good.
Yeah. It shouldn't be a whirlwind, not like that.
No, it's
No.
and that is lovely in its own place, but actually, you need a love that simmers, not a love that's, all there in the beginning, and then you want something that's gonna build over time. Slow, simmering, something that I've got now, I'm really happy. Yeah, and that took a time,
That's
that took
brilliant.
time, yeah,
Exactly. The key point here is time.
yeah.
So take the time. It's all great at the beginning, but take the time. And from what I understand, most toxic type, shall we say, have they even got the patience to take the time, and they don't, they will struggle to take that time. So, and it's boundaries, but we'll get to that as well. So I guess spinning off from this, and a huge important part of the tactics to recognize which is extremely damaging is gaslighting. So point 2 is gaslighting. And when did you first realize you were questioning your own reality?
I think the first big telltale sign I had, and maybe there was smaller things before that time, but I'd gotten engaged, and that's why I kind of say give it about a year or until like a specific event has happened. Like I felt that once I'd got engaged, he wasn't quite so charming anymore. And the one thing that really sticks out to me when
Yeah.
I look back is I'd gone away with him and another couple, and the other couple had a baby, and so the wife was the partner was staying at the hotel whilst the three of us were going out. So it was me and two males, uh, one being my fiance. We went out to a nightclub. We had a really good night, but towards the end of the night, I needed to use the bathroom. Um, Unbeknownst to me, the other male needed to use the bathroom, which left my fiance sitting at a table that saw the male and female toilets. It was female and male toilets. And I went off first. Unbeknownst to me, the other person went off. I came back and the other person wasn't there. And my fiance had said, "You just came out of the male toilets." And I said, "No, I didn't." I came out of the female toilets. And they said, "Why was you in the male toilets?" And I said, "I wasn't in the male toilets. I've been in the female toilets. I know where I've been." And they said,
Wow.
"I've been in the male toilets with the other man, the other friend." And I knew I hadn't, but I was
Mm.
trying to
Yeah.
convince somebody of a reality that hadn't happened. And so we ended up having a big row. Um, the male came out of the toilets, wondered what on earth was going on, and we left. And we carried on arguing the whole time until we got back. Of me trying to convince him, and the other male trying to convince him that it never happened. And it got to the point where
Wow.
yeah, we left the male behind, and I had to go and tell the his partner what had happened to show my partner that I did not go into the male toilets with the other man. And that's first time that I should have run and never
Mm.
looked. But at the time, I thought I was
Yeah.
just trying to convince him that he didn't see what he saw, what he thinks he saw. I really did go into the women's toilets, went to the toilet, washed my hands, came back out. And but how do you argue with a reality that never happened? How? So I just put it down to
Oh,
too much alcohol, and that maybe,
yeah.
he maybe he saw someone that looked like me. Who knows?
Yeah.
But because I thought he loved me and he trusted me, and I just couldn't believe that I was what I was hearing. I didn't realise that was gaslighting. Yeah. But also think now
Well,
looking back,
you've just, yeah.
I was trying.
Mhm.
He was testing to see what my loyalty. Where did my loyalties lie? And it was some form of test.
Yeah.
And gaslighting, it
So
was it's
it,
psychological abuse.
yeah, yeah. I mean that. Can you hear me? Okay, Karen?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Um, I just want to say, the connection's very choppy on my end, so I'm struggling with the audio as well. My connection is quite strong, but if you could hear me okay, I'll just spin off from what you just said. So,
yeah,
in summary, what you've demonstrated there is a very, very clear gaslighting, but also on top of that, that he's paranoid about certain behaviours about you, which is also a projection. There's a lot here to unpick. But the emotional distress he was causing you to prove your, telling the truth that it didn't actually happen. Um, it it begins this cycle, doesn't it? And it's almost like a testing of how far he could push you and how far you would go. But here is the beginnings of it. And don't forget, you've already been love bombed. So there is that constant confusion they put you in. Some labels call it crazy making, the narcissistic circus. You could call it, several things. But the fact is, when you're in it, after you've already been love bombed, and you were very young as well, let's be frank, um, you were stuck in that. So yes, looking back, you have a recognition of what that is and the example that you shared. But in reality, at that time, it's impossible to understand what's going on, isn't it?
yeah. And the fact that I would apologise, like whenever, like the gaslighting would happen, I think I've got to say I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I like it was me that was apologising for bad behaviour
Yeah,
that I didn't cause, but I
yeah,
felt like I better say I'm better apologise for it. So I was constantly apologising that he must have thought he'd seen me that when I knew I didn't. So and that carried
yeah,
on, through our relationship. I was constantly apologising for things that were
yeah,
not real, but I felt like it must be my fault. I must have got it wrong.
yeah. And that's a huge part to pay attention on. Is that if anyone feels that experiencing that, the repetitive apologizing and wondering if you're the problem all the way through. Life doesn't work like that. There's always problems, but you discuss and you pull it apart and you work it out, and you move forward, but not in this cycle. It doesn't seem to move forward and get resolved, shall I say.
Yeah.
So shall I move on to point number 3? And this is a very difficult one because it's one that's somewhat still newly recognised, but still needs to get unpacked quite a lot. And we've got some brief examples of it, and that is financial control. Many people don't recognise financial abuse whatsoever. Um, so I was just wondering what if you could share, what did it look like for you, the financial abuse?
Well, I would not have said that my relationship had financial abuse in it. I only discovered that financial abuse was present when I was out of it. Because if you looked at
Yeah,
my relationship at the time, I had a very nice lifestyle. My children had a nice lifestyle. I had a nice lifestyle, and I, I was able to go out and buy nice things for myself, my children, my home. But I had to account for that money. He knew every penny I spent.
yeah,
I didn't have my own account. Everything came from a joint account. He had other accounts, but I didn't. So with him knowing every penny I spent, I couldn't just take money out or do what I wanted. I had to account for it. It wasn't
hmm,
until years out when I read the 10 warning signs and it listed financial abuse. And I thought, no, I didn't have financial abuse in my marriage. Actually, I think that's one of the things that kept me stuck because I kept saying, I've got such a lovely lifestyle. How can it be abuse? How can I say it's abusive? Like, how can I not be happy with what I've got? But I was happy with my life. I just wasn't happy with the person that I was with, and he wasn't happy with me, it seemed. So the
Well,
financial abuse would show up that
mm,
I suppose as well he would want me to say that I was working for him when I wasn't working for him. That was one of the things that I can say. There were
yeah,
certain other
hmm,
things that happens, and I know that my son has said that he always felt there was an ulterior motive for
yeah,
for my ex to be with me later on down the line and having a child. Um, yeah, we'll never really know. I just know that there was stuff that happened
yeah.
in the relationship that you wouldn't count as financial abuse, but it was.
Financial abuse. So
Yeah.
what you're highlighting in summary here is that there's the financial abuse in the intimate level in the family unit, but it doesn't have to appear like, as you're saying, like the obvious type. It was more you have to justify your spends and so on and so forth, but quite restrictive. Now, don't get me wrong. There's compromise and discussion in any healthy relationship of where finances go. If you want to be good financially, of course, but when it's in this sort of way, keeping in mind the other tactics which we are talking through, it's a very different dynamic. And what you've also very importantly touched on is the business aspect. There are a lot of abusers from that angle also that can use your name or have you involved in the business aspect of things without your knowledge and without your agreement. So there's a huge area there that needs to be looked at as well, and anything else surrounding financial control. And again, I just wanted to bring some attention to the fact that it could also be the flip side, that if you are the person that holds majority of the money, they will tell you where that spending goes. They will extract that money from you too. Like there's so many different avenues of how you get exploited financially. And it doesn't matter what the amount is. And that's so important to recognize. It's not necessarily about the amount, it's about the control.
Oh,
So that is a major tactic.
I do remember towards the end of our relationship, he'd asked me to take out a loan in my name. So I'd taken out quite a substantial amount in his name, in my name, and then when we split up, I was responsible for paying that money back.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
he he would say he if I left him, he wouldn't pay the school fees. So I felt very trapped. That would I my children, you know, I'm gonna my children's education is really important, and what am I going to
Yeah.
do? How am I
Mhm.
going to pay those school fees? So that's another thing that kept me trapped, and I think it would keep a lot of people trapped, worrying about your children.
Yeah. Absolutely. And there's huge amount of dynamics to it. So, I mean, just the pure point that you made there, they make you take out a loan. They've got no name to it, but you have, and then you're left with the loan. There's a lot of this that isn't recognised, and it's not also recognised through divorce proceedings. But again, we could go into that in detail at some other time, actually. It would be good to elaborate on this. Um, so what I will do now is move on to the next topic, which will again start giving a bigger picture of what was going on. So spinning off from the financial control, one of the hardest ones, and you won't even know it's actually happening, is isolation. So, how does the abuse gradually shrink a person's world? That's a strong question. So, Karen, I will hand that over to you. How did you experience the isolation?
I had to give up certain friends quite early on in our relationship. Um, I moved over from where my family was in one area, and I moved over to his area. I didn't realise at the time, he kept saying that he wouldn't move over to my area, because I said, well, why wouldn't you move over to where I live, where all my family is? And he said that he wouldn't move over to the dark side. And I didn't know what that meant for a long time. I always thought that meant maybe the weather's not so good. I know this is going to sound mental, but the weather's not so good where I I used to live. Maybe that's what he meant, but he didn't mean that. So I moved over to his because I thought that I would have a better quality of life. It wasn't quite so far from my family. No, it was an hour's drive, but I'd make friends, and my son would get to go to a good school. Kieran would get to go to a good school, and so I made that move over to the other to where I moved to, and but not realizing that my circle, of friends and support I was reliant on him, not my
Yeah.
circle of friends who I'd left a lot of them behind, and I couldn't even be friends with certain people. I wasn't allowed to be friends with any men whatsoever, um, just females, and under his, you know, guidelines of whether he thought I could have that friend or not.
Again, that is absolutely full on control. Um, and as you're explaining that, it just takes me back to the beginning of where you said the gaslighting appeared and those two people. But what if you wanted to actually be friends with these people, aside from the allegations from him? But as you're saying, that started a long time ago. And then obviously he looked at your dynamics and put you in a position where you were moving out to him. And yes, exactly. You're losing friends. You're moving away from your support and making you feel very lonely through this. And in summary, you're literally walking on eggshells because he's in charge of, what your life looks like and who's in your life. So you can't
Yeah.
make a mistake either, can you? So yeah.
Well, my world got very small, so
Yes.
I just
Yeah.
relied on him and I suppose his family, and just having my you know where my son went to school, a few odd school mums
Yeah.
were okay, and that was it. So my world was he was my world. He made it so that he was the
Um,
world, and
yeah.
I was the one that was outside, and I wanted to, try and please him and try and make him happy, and not do anything that upset him. But I used to spend a lot of time on my own with my son and just wait
Yeah.
for him. And I know that something happened quite early on when I moved over to that side, is that he used to go to the pub a lot and leave me on my own. And so one day he came in really late, a lot later than he said he would,
Mm.
and an argument ha- broke out, and he pushed me really hard, and he'd called me a lot of names, and my son had rung up my mum and dad because he was scared and he didn't know what to do, and I didn't know that he'd rung my parents, but my parents, I heard a knock at the door. I went downstairs to open it. My dad pushed past me and ran up the stairs, tipped my then ex-husband off the sofa onto the floor, picked him up and said in no uncertain terms, "You ever do that to my daughter again, and you'll be hearing from me." And then my parents left very quickly afterwards, and
Yeah.
I told my son off. I told him that he should never have done that. That he could have, my dad might have had a car accident, or they might have had a fight, and it would be all my fault. I thought everything was my fault.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
uh,
Absolutely. And I'm sorry to hear that, Karen. That I mean, there's a lot more to it, and obviously we could cover what we can today, but clearly there's a lot more to it about his behaviour. And although your family tried to support, intervene, but at the end of the day, you end up on the receiving end of it at a later date or quite soon after. So it's the cycle. This is the damage of the cycle. And I guess with the isolation, even though yeah they do try that, but now with the family getting involved, it's caused further conflict, and that's a common tactic as well. That now there's conflict with the other family members, then you're going to get isolated more because it's not comfortable anymore to engage with them, or anyone could freely come over. Things change in that dynamics. So in summary, I mean, clearly it's absolutely horrific of their behavior, but a healthy love expands your world. And unfortunately, abuse often makes it smaller, and that is exactly what you're describing. And not just smaller, painful and abusive in that physical sense too. So, there's a lot to think about there. I'm
And
going to move over now to another point, if that's all right, Karen. Um,
yeah,
this would strongly tie into what you just said there as well. But there's the hardest part of what most survivors struggle with and aren't very aware of until possibly later, is trauma bonds.
yeah.
So why is leaving so difficult when people think it should be easy? That's one hell of a question, isn't it? So if you'd like to experience a little bit about trauma bonds.
You become addicted to the highs and the lows of the relationship. So, coercive control and abuse, it's not it's not always present all the time. The abuse is not always present all the time. There's lots of nice times. There's lots of good times, and then there's the horrible times that you think, right, that's it. I'm leaving. But but because of the nice that they just switch, and then they go back to being nice again, and they're really sorry, and they're really you know they act as if they're really remorseful for what they've done. So then you get pulled back. It's called hoovering. You get hoovered back into their world again of who they were when you first met them, and that lovely person that you fell in love with. So you're constantly thinking, who are they? Are they that horrible person that shows up a short amount of time, or are they that nice person who I met in the beginning? And you're constantly trying to juggle the two, like trying to make sense of the two. So you become addicted basically to the highs and the lows of the relationship. And I've since heard it's as addictive as heroin. That's how addictive it is, that
Yeah.
you
Hmm.
become addicted
Yeah.
to that high and the low of the relationship. It keeps you stuck. It keeps you, wanting the person that you first met to come back. And that horrible person, is gone now, and they're not going to come back again because they've just said, I promise you, I'll never do that again. I love you. I want you in my, like, you, I do everything for you. My family means everything to me. They just paint a completely different reality to the one that you've just experienced, and you just want to believe
It's
them. You
it's
just want
very
to go back
yeah.
to know.
It's it's very much a roller coaster, and the impact that has on your emotional self, and psychologically, it's that it forms into some form of an addiction. Other words that could be looked into is things like intermittent reinforcement. Um, but it's that mental and emotional hook is what you're describing there. And that yearning to have that amazing person at the beginning that was there, and, but dribbles of, that you might get through the years, but it gets less and less, doesn't it? Um, the actual fake person that they pretended to be at the beginning, it gets less and less, doesn't it?
I think it gets less and less, and also you become more aware that you can't keep saying that you're going to change, because I gave them plenty of chances,
Yeah.
many, many chances. And I remember thinking, how many chances can you give somebody who keeps saying one thing, but their actions are completely different? And I just think that you get to a stage eventually where you have to trust the actions. I didn't think that at the time, but I know now looking back, I needed them to show me, you can't keep saying, I'm going to get help with my drink. I'm going to get help with this. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and have some, therapy. And they never did. So how how many years can you hold on to that when their actions don't match their words?
Absolutely, and it's a mixture of a world that you're living in. It's good times mixed with bad times. And these promises. And don't get me wrong, people struggle generally. Like, people could struggle trying to make changes in their lives, but that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about the cycle of abuse, these false promises, and it's another hook to keep you in. So I guess in summary, people stay because they're trauma bonded, obviously, not because they're weak. And there's a huge difference there. So I'm just going to move on to the next part, and this one. And before I begin it, I just want to say what goes on onto this next tactic is happening from the beginning, and that is the smear campaign. Um, and so you're going to speak about what happened when you left, because that's when it's usually connected with the smear campaign. But I just want it to be recognised that the smear campaigns actually started from the beginning of how the abuser talks about you to people around you and in your circle. So I will pass that back to you, Karen. What was your experience of the smear campaign?
That I was being portrayed as a problem. It was my fault that the marriage had ended. That they completely missed any took any blame or any responsibility for the fact that I ended the marriage, and they told people that I was having an affair. So that was easier for them to say. And so all my friends turned. I wondered why so many people were like giving me funny looks and being angry with me and talking to me not very nicely anymore. And it wasn't until quite a few months later that someone that they thought I guess had originally sided with them had a fallout with them. So obviously they came straight back to me and they said that they sat in their house, literally crying, saying that I'd had the affair and they didn't know what they were going to do.
Wow.
And my daughter, one of my daughters was there. So they they were so
Wow.
brazen that they painted me to be the
Yeah.
problem. And
One that caused the problem. Can I just draw some attention, Karen,
yeah,
to a thought? Um, you may have heard of the term, if you listen closely enough, the narcissist tells on themselves. And I'm just bringing some attention to what I've come across with that. But just listening to what you said, and right at the beginning, that there was already some real serious allegations of you floating off to the toilet with some fella, and the gaslighting began back then. But now look at it, decades later, that's the same topic that he decides to pick up and lie about and smear you about, that you went off and had an affair. But at the beginning, he was telling on himself, but we don't know that. Nobody knows that. And that's the hardest part, is that it comes back round, and they hold on to these things. So I just wanted to bring some thinking to that, if that's okay. So I mean, there's obviously a lot more to it when it comes to the smear campaign, and it's extremely damaging. You're portrayed as the problem, as what you just went through. You lose people, but you really get to see who is actually the ones that care about you genuinely, and they are going to support you. You'll find out that's very testing times at that time.
yeah, you don't see it at the time. It's really confusing and very upsetting at the time because you can't understand what you've just been through hell and you haven't said anything to anyone about some of the abuse because you couldn't even put words to it. And so you don't say anything because what I write about in the chapter, I never told anyone about the particular night. My marriage should have ended 4 years prior to that on the night that
Yeah,
this particular night. And I would have left them then if I hadn't have been in so much pain and trying to hold my family together because my little girl going into hospital. So
yeah.
I promised myself that I would build up my strength and my courage to leave. And it, you know, I can't, I'm very happy. I'm 4 years now living here, and the time has flown by. But when you're in an unhappy situation, 4 years is like a lifetime.
The
And
long
I
time. Yeah, absolutely.
and I was looking for
And
the right
Karen,
moment, but the
yeah,
right moment didn't come. I had to make the right moment. I had to jump and trust that life would catch me, and it was you know.
yeah. And and it's very important just to highlight that obviously we are just covering some very, very small amounts of your story. And obviously in your chapter, you have elaborated more. And there's actually more to your story than what you've written as well. So, I mean, but exactly what you're saying, there never is quite the right moment. And obviously we do recommend that people get support where they can, to try and make that transition out of it. But you are right. Look what you just said. There was a serious incident 4 years prior, and it took 4 years to get out. And that's how long it can take, because all of those dynamics and tactics have been put there. And then obviously on the other side of it, that smear campaign often tells you more about the person spreading it than the person they're targeting, sorry. So, the person who's smearing is, you've got to think about who they are and the enablers that carry that on. So, so please do everyone, read, the chapter 14 of, Karen's story, and there's always more of her story to come in the future, but there's a lot more there, than what we're able to share today. So I want to just put us towards the direction of the best part. And that's spinning off from what you just said. And that's the turning point. What finally gave you the courage to leave? So you're saying it took 4 years. What actually gave you the courage to leave, Karen?
I thought I was staying for my children. I thought that I wanted my children to have their stable home, but it was actually listening on national radio that I heard that children in an unhappy relationship situation does more harm than good. And I could see the damage it was doing to my children. And so,
Mm,
for my children's sake, I needed to dig deep and I needed to leave because I was showing them what love was not. And love is not abusive. So, somebody
absolutely.
who doesn't know what love is abusive. And I needed to break away from that. And even though I knew my children's lives were not going to be quite the same again, I just knew that they would be able to see that their mum did the right thing, and in their lives, it would stand them in good stead later on down the line. I mean, I did have to get my children therapy, and I had to get myself therapy, and I write about that in the book. But I know I did the right thing, 100% for my children, was to leave that unhappy environment and that horrible
Yeah.
environment,
Yeah.
abusive environment. Yeah, because
Yeah, it's absolutely abuse.
I was constantly trying to smooth things over. The walking on eggshells. I was constantly trying to keep
Yeah.
everything calm all the time. And when you do that over a long period of time, it, like I was
Mhm.
having panic attacks that I didn't even realise were panic attacks at the time. So anybody who
Yeah.
thinks that I did not suffer behind closed doors, I suffered mentally. You know,
Well, the thing is, at the end of the day, Karen, I mean, it's obviously always hard hearing, more and more about your story. And, um, I mean, we can't even squeeze it into this time that we've got now. However, I do want to again draw some attention on another thought here. And I've raised this before when we've done a couple of videos in the past, but, it's Schadenfreude, if I pronounce that correctly. And that is when the, abuser is, enjoying, or has sense of joy about the discomfort, abuse they're inflicting on their victim. They're enjoying that. It's not, and that needs to be remembered. So whether it's physical, emotional, financial, whatever it is, they know you're suffering, and physical, of course. They know you're suffering, but likely to have some form of enjoyment from it. And that's where the smirk could come into it too. So we all know about the narcissistic smirk, and well, we're all learning now. There's so much more to it, but being trapped it's hard to get out of. And what you did is absolutely amazing. And you finally did have the courage to leave. You had to deal with the smear campaign. And then obviously there's lots of other things that went on, which we can't quite touch on today. So I just wanted to ask you, as we're rounding off our time together, if a woman is watching this interview and something we've discussed sounds relatable, what
Uh-huh.
would you want her to know?
I would want her to know to trust herself. And if something feels wrong, that's enough. You don't need permission from anyone else to take your concerns seriously. There is life after abuse, and it can be more beautiful than you can imagine. And the smear campaign actually does you a huge favour. You cannot see it at the time, but it allows you, because you're isolated and you haven't got anybody else to depend, like, in your circle, you then put your focus on your children, your focus on yourself, and you pour back into you. So all the love and care that you once gave to somebody else with the wrong person, you pour it back into you, and then you're able to rebuild from that point. Self-care is how I took my power back, and I rebuilt from the ground up. And the life that I've got now is one that I once dreamed about. So and if it's
That
possible
you
for me,
once dreamed about.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
is.
well done, Karen, honestly. And,
Yeah.
that's really, really inspiring. And, and obviously, please, everyone, do look into the work that Karen Cade, previously known as Karen Jones, has done. You've got your previous book as well, Happy You, Happy Body. Yep. But the journey that you went through, and look at where you are now. And I just wanted to, give you a huge thank you, and honestly, well done for your achievements, and surviving all of that, but then now thriving where you are now. And I just wanted to, just summarize, again, please, guys, do look into Karen's new chapter in the book, Start Over, book 10. Now, the last little point we just want to make, is Karen will be putting donations into the new law of Myers Law. And can you just explain, has the law been put in place, or are they fighting to get the law of Myers Law? And if you could tell me a little bit more about it, please, Karen.
Well, in my own life, I've had to use Clare's Law. I've done domestic abuse training and I know all about Clare's Law. It's your right to find out if a new partner has previous for domestic abuse. And I
Hmm.
strongly advise any woman who's in a new relationship with someone, that it's your right to ask whether they have previous for only the police will only ever tell you about domestic abuse, not anything else. But then that gives you, having that information allows you to make, um, you know, choices, your choices, informed choices. And Myers Law, that's for the woman. Clare's Law is for the woman. But now with Myers Law, they're trying to get Myers Law through, to act for the child so that it kind of bypasses one of the parents, and then it lets social services, all the different, care services, to the police, social services, have all got all the information in one place, and then they make sure that they protect the child. Because what I've learned through everything I've been through and what's happened with my own, please go and look at Maya's story.
Wow.
I
There's
talk
some
about
sad stories.
all through my social media is all about Maya, little girl Maya, who lost her life to her mum's boyfriend, who she'd only been with for 9 weeks. It should never have happened.
Yeah.
And so Maya's law
Yeah.
is being put in place by Maya's family, her dad's family, and they need funding.
Mhm.
So I decided to donate my chapter
Yeah.
to any royalties I get from my chapter to Maya's law, because protecting children should always come first. And that's what I learned on my
Yeah.
domestic abuse
Absolutely.
training.
Yeah.
I a specialist police
Yeah.
officer, child protection police officer that came in, and he
Yeah.
said the child
Absolutely.
welfare
And it's, you know,
paramount.
it's so hard always hearing um lives that are lost, especially of those that are so young, children, babies. You know, I mean, we're parents ourselves. It just leaves you empty. But yes, as we know, there are abusers that are of any gender, you know, so it needs to be recognised. So, um, I really wish them luck to get this law put into place, and you'll be sharing the link, as you said, as well. And thank you so much for making donations to Maya's Law.
It's my
So
pleasure.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to thank you again, Karen, today,
Thank you.
and
Thank you for having me.
well done for everything. And I really look forward to your upcoming amazing journeys that you will continue to go on, and inspiring others as you do. Thank you very much, Karen Jones.
Thank you,
Good
Sunita,
day.
for your time.
All right
Thank
then.
you,
Thank you. Bye bye.
beautiful.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye bye.